Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. It's your boy, he's back, World of Wrestling, here today to discuss about MMA news, rumors, episode number 4. I got quite a few stories I'm going to go ahead and cover with you guys today, as I did yesterday. We went over our MMA UFC Prospect Scouting Report, episode number 1 on Julius Walker, so go ahead and check that out on the channel. Very good insight on my thoughts on Julius Walker's performance against Alonzo Menafield this past Saturday, which I was not really all that impressed. But yeah, let's go ahead and cover some UFC news, and then after I break down all that, go over that stuff with you guys, I'll come back with another video on boxing. There's quite a few stories I got on boxing that I haven't went over with you guys here on the channel, so let's get into it. We got Devison Figueiredo versus Corey Sandhagen to headline UFC Des Moines, Iowa. That's an event in May. Top bantamweight contenders Devison Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen will look to put their names back in the title mix in May. This is a really good matchup. I think Figueiredo should pull out a victory if he can get Corey Sandhagen to the ground. That's all dependent on how well Corey Sandhagen's takedown defense is. If Corey Sandhagen's takedown defense is good, I think Corey Sandhagen could actually take this on the feet and win this fight, honestly. So after the losing arguable bantamweight title eliminator in their most recent octagon appearances, former flyweight champion Figueiredo, who is 13-4 with one draw in the UFC and a 24-4 with a one draw MMA overall record, will take on Sandhagen, who's 17-5 overall and 10-4 in the UFC. In a UFC Fight Night main event, May 3rd in Des Moines, Iowa. Pay-per-view or ESPN Plus. A person with knowledge of the situation confirmed the booking to MMA Junkie on Thursday following an initial report from MMA reporter Leonardo Gamarez. The person requested anonymity from to be unknown because the promotion has yet to make the official announcement. Figueiredo, the former two-time UFC flyweight champion who had a series of battles against Brandon Moreno, most recently competed in November when he lost a unanimous decision to Peter Yan in the UFC Fight Night 248 main event. It was his first defeat since moving up to 135 pounds. Sandhagen, meanwhile, will try to rebound from his UFC on ABC 7 main event loss against Umar Nurmagomedov in August. He was the former challenger to Merab's featherweight title, I believe. Or bantamweight, excuse me. I'm mixing up the fucking featherweight and bantamweight divisions. So here's the updated fight card for Iowa's event in May 3rd. We got Corey Sandhagen and Devison Figueiredo versus, and then we got Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate. That should be a good fight. I'll take Yana Santos against Miesha Tate, who's aging and probably not going to win. Santiago Benvenbibo versus Daniel Rodriguez. I think Daniel Rodriguez could win this. Gillian Robertson versus Marina Rodriguez. I'll take Gillian Robinson. I think she possibly could have a good shot at winning this fight as well. Yang Ying Lee versus Trevor Peek. Have no idea who's going to win that fight. I'm not too familiar with them. And Serhi Sydney versus Cameron Smotherman. I have no idea about these two. So I'm not even going to give a judgment call. But yeah, this May 3rd card seems a little bit of a decent fight night card for us to be able to view free on UFC or ESPN Plus. We have Israel Adesanya not expecting to be a UFC champion again, but insists he is not washed. I honestly have given up on Israel Adesanya. His last fight, I thought he was going to win, but I didn't really bet on him because I thought maybe there was a possibility he could lose. So I just stayed away from the fight completely, and he unfortunately lost to his last opponent, which I was kind of disappointed. I've come to the conclusion Israel Adesanya has come to the end of his career as a top guy in UFC in the middleweight division, honestly. So the former UFC champion Israel Adesanya has come to terms with his current state in the sport after defending the UFC middleweight title 5 times. Adesanya, 24-5 with 13 wins and 5 losses in the UFC, finds himself having lost 4 fights of the past 5. The style bender suffered his 3rd straight loss when he was knocked out by Nasruddin Amanov, who's 16-4 overall, but 8-2 in the UFC. Has a very good record in the UFC overall. The UFC Fight Night 250 headliner last month in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't see himself re-entering the title picture again, or he won't focus on it at least. I don't have a title shot in mind for the future. No, Adesanya said on his YouTube channel, when I got to the UFC, I never chased the belt. I stand on that. I never chased the belt. I expected it. I expected to be champion. I expected to get to this point that I wanted to get to because of the work that I put in and my belief in myself and my mindset. I knew with everything that I was going to do, I was going to get there. I expected it. After the Dracus Duplessis fight, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with these names, but I fucking love UFC. I remember just thinking, oh well, cool. It'll come around. I don't have to chase it. I know it'll come around because I expect it. Now after this fight, I just kind of like, you know what? I'm not expecting anything. I'm not expecting to be the champ again. If what I've done in this game doesn't make me happy already, then what will? So I'm not expecting it. If it comes, I'll take it with both hands, but I'm not expecting it. I'm kind of just chilling and living and training and doing well. Adesanya is unsure what's next, but dismissed the notion that he's a washed-up fighter. They call me washed, but how are you going to call me washed when you haven't even been in laundry? Adesanya said, you haven't even gotten dirty. What have you done? So he's pretty much shitting on the fans. Personally, my thoughts on Israel Adesanya, I think with what he just stated in this article, from what I just read, I think it's time for him to just hang it up. I think he needs to walk away from the UFC. I think he's had a good career. 24-5, I think it was, overall as a UFC fighter is not terrible. With 5 title defenses in the UFC middleweight division and having memorable fights and so forth. I mean, it's not as long as Anderson Silva or maybe as long as Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman was on top for as long as he was, I think. But maybe a little longer than that. But honestly, I don't think Adesanya has anything more to prove to himself or to anyone else. I think with him at his age, I think he's like in his early 30s. Let me just double check. Israel Adesanya might be 35 possibly. I'm not sure. Israel Adesanya is 35 years old. So, 35 years old, what he's done in his career, 24-5. I mean, he ain't got much more to prove, and his chances of getting a title opportunity anytime soon, with what he's sustained so far, is slim to none in my opinion. So I honestly think he's probably better off sticking with going with a retirement, maybe being a trainer for other UFC fighters that are coming up, and just going that direction personally. Because I don't think that he needs to prove anything more. And the more he goes in the octagon and the more he loses, it's just lowering his stock of his name, lowering his credibility as a UFC fighter. And I just think it's time for him to just walk away. He doesn't need to prove anything more to anyone or to himself personally, with his age and everything else in between. So I think it's just time for him to walk and be happy where he's at. Especially what he said. What more do I need to prove? If I'm not happy with what I've done so far in my career, what is going to make me happy? So there you go. If you're happy with what you've done, then why do you need to keep fighting? For the money? You could look to do other things to earn money within the MMA realm of UFC and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of fighters that would love him to train them to be the kind of fighter he was in his prime. So, me personally, I think he just needs to take a walk and have a nice day. Oh, another story that I'd like to cover with you guys is actually about Brendan Allen's thoughts on his fight against Anthony Hernandez. He's actually really down on himself. He said that he just ain't the guy I thought I was against Anthony Hernandez. I think he did as good as he possibly could do against Anthony Hernandez. I just think Anthony Hernandez is just a far better fighter. But I don't think that he's terrible in any way, shape, or form. I gave enough respect to him that I actually did not bet against him, personally. I thought that he could have had a shot at winning the fight, despite the odds being in the favor of Anthony Hernandez being over minus 300, which is kind of a wide margin, truthfully. So me personally, I think Brandon Allen did a very decent job. I mean, granted, I'm pretty sure he'd prefer the fucking victory over taking a loss, which I don't blame him for being upset about that. But quite frankly, shouldn't be so hard on himself. There's always another opportunity, and I think that he's eventually going to meet up with Anthony Hernandez once again, probably in a main event fight at some point for a championship, because I see Anthony Hernandez eventually becoming a world champion in the middleweight division. I think the guy's got talent. My only issue with Hernandez during his fight with Brendan Allen was his stamina. I think his stamina was a little weak, but there was commentary about him having to cut weight really quick within a few hours because he was still slightly overweight. So I think that might have played a huge factor in the way his stamina was going in that fight. But overall, I think Anthony Hernandez is a pretty good fighter overall in the middleweight division. So the number 9 ranked UFC fighter, Brandon Allen, failed to exact revenge in UFC Seattle's co-main event this past weekend inside Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, dropping a grueling unanimous decision to Anthony Hernandez. Just a few hours after his disappointing loss, Allen shared a very honest self-assessment via Instagram. Just ain't the guy I thought I was, Allen wrote. Hats off to Hernandez. Love the guy through the shit that this sport's bring. Love the guy through the shit this sport brings. Who knows what's next? Thanks to my team and those who stuck with me. After ripping off a 7-fight win streak with victories over Paul Craig, Chris Curtis, Andre Muniz, among others. All In has now lost 2 straight co-main event fights, and he has placed himself a challenging position, having to now rattle off several wins to reclaim his position in the 185-pound ranks. To add insult to injury, UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis, who torched Allen after his last loss, did it again on Allen's Instagram post. I don't know what's next either, but I can most certainly tell what ain't next for a very long time, du Plessis wrote. Wow. That is some harsh fucking words. Now there is a guy that I think could have Dricus du Plessis' number. Shemet, I believe is his name. He's a very good wrestler. Seen him fight a couple of times. This guy is a fucking wrestling machine, and just he can't be stopped. I haven't seen one person stop him from taking them down, which is absolutely insane, personally, in my own personal opinion. But yeah, I feel bad for Brandon Allen. I think he's being a little harsh on himself, but I mean, I can understand why he was expecting to go back into this fight with a rematch with him, and with the slight advantage over Anthony Hernandez being having a hard time cutting weight and making sure he's making weight within the reasonable amount of time. I have to spend like 2 hours cutting the weight just to make sure he hits it. Is a little bit concerning, but I honestly think that Brandon Allen could possibly turn this around. He's not like super old or anything. He's still got plenty of time in his career to change things around. Maybe he just needs to change his style a little bit, something like that. Work on his stamina, because I can tell you what, both of their staminas were not great. Brandon Allen really didn't have much of an excuse. Anthony Hernandez kind of did. So, personal feelings about this is, I just think that Brandon Allen needs to work on a few flaws that's in his game, and he might be able to come back from all this and eventually work his way back up to the top, to where he wants to be anyway. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it at this time. You know what to do. Hit the like button if you like the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And leave a comment down below. I'll definitely get back to you on that. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great night, guys. Bye.